Hi, welcome to Blacticulate, a podcast series featuring UK young black professionals, where we find out how they do what they do, so you can too. Or not. After all, it is your life. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Blacticulate. Today's episode is with Matthew Ncube. He works as a Programmatic Solution Specialist for Google. Now, what is that? If you listen to this episode, you can find out a lot more about exactly what that means. Also about how to actually work for a company like Google. And he also gives great advice on being able to find growth areas in every walk of life. And so hopefully, guys, you learn something at the very least, or you can take away something. So without further ado, we bring to you Matthew Ncube. Gotcha. Hey, Matthew.
Hello.
Do me a favor. Can you describe yourself to those who don't know who you are? Like your name, your age, and anything else, like what you do.
Right. Hi. Yeah, my name is Matthew Ncube. That's spelled Ncube. I live in London. I live in SW9 to be precise.
Right.
I am 33 years old, and I work for Google as a Programmatic Solutions Specialist.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
First and foremost, I feel like it might be quite interesting to know how, I don't think you've mentioned that you're Zimbabwean born, and you might get this question asked all the time. How is someone who's from Zimbabwe in London for a start and working for one of the best companies known globally? Is that a story that you can tell? Or
Yeah, well,
is it?
I think it's there's nothing special about my story, in my opinion. I grew up in Zimbabwe. My parents actually still live there. They're extremely aspirational. I'm sure a lot of my fellow African brothers and sisters will attest to this. Where, all they wanted from their children was the best, and for their children to be the best and doing whatever they're doing. Yeah. And I guess I think that was instilled in me from a very, very young age. And the journey from kind of growing up in Zim, going to high school back there, and end up studying here in this country in Bristol, studying mathematics, and that was I guess me studying mathematics was more of I shouldn't say a cop-out, but because I had a genuine love for the subject. I thrived in it kind of growing up, and
Did it become easy? Was it easy for you?
Because I know when people say, I don't like saying that, but actually I think it was a lot easier than it was a cop out, to be honest. Yeah, it was an easy option for me, and I think a lot of people who are good at something, if you're good at something, I say just run with it. You focus on your strengths and not your weaknesses.
Okay.
So I focus on developing my strengths. So I studied mathematics. I was fortunate enough to get a pretty good degree, and then thereafter I was almost, not say lost in the world, but I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I think that the beauty about having a master's degree was that people in the world just see you a bit differently, which I think is a bit unfair.
Yeah. I mean, explain that. How do they
people
see
see differently? In the sense that a lot of doors tend to open up really, really quickly. So, and you tend to have a lot more options. Well, that was my experience. And there are a lot of considerations I went through. I mean, I did an internship for a stockbroker in Silicon Valley. That was kind of working on building financial instruments. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely open doors. Silicon Valley stockbroker internship.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I think when I was going through my degree, I was thinking, yes, I'll probably end up being an investment banker. So that was the whole idea of getting that internship. But then I think after that internship, I was like, maybe this isn't really cut out for me. Even though I had a good time doing it, I really, really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, maybe the investment banking route is not mine. So then I was kind of wondering where else should I apply my analytical skill sets. And I stumbled upon an article in The Guardian. This was back in 2007. And it was talking about the whole idea of how media buying was changing and how kind of a lot of people who from technical backgrounds were going into this wonderful world of paid search advertising. And literally from reading that article to me doing a bit of research about it, for me actually looking up recruitment agents who could kind of sort me out a role, I think it took me 10 days from
No
reading an
way.
article to actually getting a job.
What?
Yeah, it happened really quickly. At the time, I was crashing at my.
Oh God!
It's quite funny. I was crashing at my cousin's house in Birmingham at the time. I was joyfully unemployed, and I kind of, in a flippant way, I said to him, "I'm going to apply for a job in London," and he was like, "Oh, you'll never get a job in London." Oh, and then literally within a week, I had a job in London.
Yes,
it happened really quickly and really a very exciting time in my life as well, because I was fortunate enough to work for a startup where I think there were only 8 people on the team. It was a very small paid search agency, so you almost touched every single aspect of the journey in a particular campaign. And had a fantastic mentor who was the founder of the company. He's very much a self-starter, and the team around me as well were brilliant. And most of us were from a technical background. I know I worked with a couple of guys who had physics degrees, somebody had a chemistry degree. So it was actually quite nice. It was almost like a nice little
team.
Nice little team, and then from then on the journey applied being in online media buying. I ended up kind of discovering the new world of programmatic advertising about 3 years ago, and I then kind of made my journey to a role at Google, essentially helping advertisers plan and strategize on how to target audiences on the web.
Okay, you touched upon something which was quite interesting earlier on. You don't think your story is unique or rare particularly. Mm-hmm. So here's a question though, for those who are listening, what would be your best advice, if you could give them, to potentially not necessarily ending up at Google, but certainly being a programmatic advisor? Or
I built programmatic solutions. Programmatic Solutions Specialist.
Okay.
I think one thing I say is focus on your strengths, and that's one thing. And one mistake we make in life is trying to correct our weaknesses, which is great. I mean, we should recognize our weaknesses, but at the same time, by recognizing the weaknesses, you're focusing on what you're good at. And if you're really, really good at something, just be extremely good at it. I think it plays a key part of what I do, and I'm really fortunate that I'm in my day-to-day job. I'm a specialist, and so I always strive to be the best I can possibly be in that specialism. And the other thing which I will say is stay ahead of the curve by looking at where are the growth areas, where is the tide going to turn. I was quite fortunate that even though I stumbled upon this paid search when it was in its infancy, I realized it was a niche. A lot of people weren't doing it. A lot of people weren't talking about it. And then within a year of me joining, I was like, oh, actually, this is actually very specialist, and it's a really good wave to be on. And so I kept on asking myself, how can I stay ahead of the curve in the media buying landscape, and essentially be the best I could possibly be in a high growth area. So I spent a good 5 years working in paid search, and I excelled and performed and worked with some amazing brands. This is before joining Google. And then the next wave, which I identified while I was still working in paid search, people started talking about programmatic advertising. It was a massive buzzword, and I was like, you know what, I've got to head into that. And very fortunately enough, I managed to secure a role at Google in programmatic, and basically just run with it.
Yeah. So I feel like that is actually something rare and unique in order to be able to identify a trend and what is going to be, as you coined the term, a big growth area. The fact that you come from quite a mathematical background helpful?
That's a good question.
Because here's the thing, right?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, if I was to go further on with this question is, imagine if your strengths lie in where it's heavily saturated. Say, for instance, you might be my mind's going blank, a good people person.
Yeah.
You know, everyone to a certain degree is very are sociable, and they would like to believe they're a good people person. So how does one, that's not niche, you know.
But then I'd like to think that there are niche areas even within the people person. If you I guess I'm thinking, because you say people person, I'm thinking maybe it could be HR recruitment. If you in that field, I'm thinking of it in my own case, where if I'm in, maybe I'm a recruiter or I'm in HR, maybe I'd like to focus on where the high growth areas in where the skill sets are being most sought after, and apply those people centric skills. For example, trying to work where you're filling those or working very closely with those technical roles or in trying to fill those technical roles, essentially.
Yeah.
And I say that because I use an example because I think I know one person who has done that, who owns his own recruitment company, has almost done that, and he's done it in a very, very clever way. While he still works in sourcing or hunting for people, he's almost evolved his own business model kind of based on where the niche is and where the growth or where the potential growth is going to be. But then again, I think the key thing, regardless of background or regardless of whatever you do, I always like to think on just, zoning in on your own strengths. I mean, I get inspired by observing other people and by looking at how other people operate. And, some of the best pieces of work which have been churned out, be it this century or the last century, or I'll name maybe a few individuals. One guy, Alan Turing. Maybe you may not know who Alan Turing is. Alan Turing, I would like to think, is but up until recently, I think he's the least known, probably the least known mathematician who helped crack the Enigma code, which essentially led to the end of the Second World War, but no one would know that.
Right, okay.
Or very few people would know that. And quite recently, there's a movie.
There's a movie with Cumberbatch.
Yeah, well, there's a movie. There's a movie. But then if you follow his story, if you read his story, I mean, he focused on kind of one specialism, even though he had a lot of interference from everywhere else. He almost had a very, very clear idea of kind of like what he wanted to set out to achieve. If you look at some more common individuals, I always encourage people to read Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Yeah. And when you read it, you get into his brain, into the way how he saw himself when he was still in the prison cell. His own vision just never changed of this one unified South Africa, even with conflict from the people he worked with and conflict from even external powers. He wanted to just focus on that one thing. And even if it meant even stepping away from the people in his own ranks to pursue that particular dream, because he could see a powerful kind of vision at the end of it. It's those great stories, which I think, which in a way almost inspire me to think, what can I do for myself, or what strengths can I focus on, kind of to build on, in my own little world, in my little existence. Okay. And
I feel like you've got an unbelievable amount of self-value, which is great.
Yeah.
I feel like that's rare. And often the case, one might actually not know what they're best at, and it might take someone else to tell them or identify that, not tell them per se, but to say, you do realize you have this uncanny ability to X or Y or Z. That's why I often think maybe mentoring and having good tutors might be, it's important. And which actually kind of reminds me of something we spoke about just earlier on, which you had great teachers. Yeah. Do you want to describe or give me a story with a great teacher?
One thing I'd like to think or to have is I think people should feel entitled to a lot of things, and that's not in a selfish way. Okay. Adidas right now are running these really cool ads, which I think they say go to the effect of, the world is yours, take it, or something to that effect. It's like, yeah. So essentially, you should feel empowered to own something and be proud of it, and that's not in a selfish way. And I was fortunate enough to, as I said earlier, my parents are they wanted to get the best out of us, and I was really fortunate to have some great educators also who to kind of lead me along that path, who were inspiring in their own right, who had achieved so much in their lives, but found a lot of value in the vocation which they had in teaching and inspiring young people to essentially be the best they could potentially do, be able to, kind of identify what are you really, really good at, and then just run with it and not try hide under a bushel. Because, if you're good at something, showcase it to the world, share it with your, with the people around you. And only then can you develop and become way better at what you're doing. Because even you're almost challenging yourself and trying to put yourself you're putting yourself out there, and people will question you and people will challenge you, and you will question yourself as well. Am I really good at it?
But that's good.
Yeah, and it's really
that's
good.
Healthy.
It's really healthy. It's very, very healthy. Yeah, because everyone needs a challenge, and I think I was very, very fortunate in that regard, and it's something which I'll say, like, I think don't be shy, put yourself out there, and make yourself heard, and make yourself known.
Well, can you find out if you're not good quite quickly?
Yes. Life is about experimentation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't try something, you'll never know if you're good at it or not. And if you're not good at it, at least you'll know and you won't do it again. It's also about
It's all about just continuous growth.
I'm a scientist, and in my field, everything we do is just by test and learn. It's like we'll do stuff, which we as human beings say, oh, that will never work, and then when it works, we're like, oh, actually, we'll do more of that.
Okay.
And I think that's and life is like that as well. If you don't try, put yourself out there, if you don't try, try out new things, and there's things which I've done which I've said, no, maybe I'm not going to try that, or no, maybe I'm not going to do that, because I know that I will fail.
But we just said failure is good, because failure isn't the opposite of success, but rather just a road to success.
Exactly.
So on that note, I want to actually almost bring this into context with Blacticulate. Google, have you found any challenges that might have to do, or that you might believe was due to your race?
That's a very good question. I would say not at Google per se, but one thing I would like. One thing I'd like. The beautiful thing about working for Google is that cultural diversity is embraced in an amazing way. The team I work on right now is so diverse, like from people from all around the world. So by me being Black, or by me even being from Zimbabwe, will not surprise the next person, because she will come from, say, Caracas in Venezuela, or a guy will come from Melbourne, Australia. And it's a very diverse experience. And so you all come together. It's not a culmination of all these people from all over the world who have varied experiences per se. So color in itself ends up being almost like a secondary thing, and it's completely muted. It's not even part of the conversation. So no, I don't think I have not had any, and I've been quite fortunate. And actually, growing up in Zimbabwe, I think I only realized that I was Black when I left Zimbabwe. So the whole idea of Black experience to me is still quite new-ish in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I grew up where everyone was pretty much Black.
Okay. So here's another question, and I'm going to wrap it up. Have you had a lot of help throughout your career? Is that something you seek to give back? Now, let me try and explain this a little bit better. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because only from my context, right, and my personal experience, I find, particularly born and raised in England, whenever, unfortunately, Black people do get in a position in which they can help, I've often found that they don't. It's a case where they found it difficult initially to break through, and therefore it's almost, for want of a better words, they're keeping all their cards to themselves.
That's a really good question. Have I had help? I've had a lot of help. But I think that the help which I've received has more or less been in the sense that I have put myself out there by trying to surround myself with people who I'd say maybe would give me some sense of direction as to what should I be doing, or how should I be applying my professional life in a way which will lead to success as quickly and as fulfilling as possible. So that's in the sense of networking through joining various meetup groups and just meeting people. By doing a bit of writing. I used to write for techie type blogs / publication, and kind of the people who I would kind of meet up with, or who would interact with the work I wrote, were they almost get you a sense of inspiration as to kind of what to do and what sort of direction I should be taking. And in terms of giving back, it's a very good point. I don't think, if I had to put myself if ask myself that question, I don't think I probably am doing as much as I should be or as I could be, and also I think it's probably because my experience I've lived in London for, this is my 8th year in London, I think. I've only lived in London for 8 years, and my experience of, I guess, being Black has been in London in its infancy, so to speak. And the interesting thing is as well, I think maybe because of the industry I work in, there have been very few Black faces I've come across, which actually I think in its own right is not right. But I guess the people who are along the way who essentially have kind of helped me shaped my career have not necessarily been Black. And also, I mean, I'll also say to anyone, you know, if you're looking for help, or if you're looking for anything, you shouldn't just focus on, you know, who's the next Black person who can help me. It should be, you know, who's the next human being, person. Yeah, I mean, but then that said, it's really good to have, you know, inspirational people of color who are out there, who essentially who don't follow the stereotype or breaking the mold, to, you know, to look up to, and to go, yeah, you know, he's a champion. But I'd like to think that, you know, there are a lot of really good human beings out there who are willing to provide guidance, or even if it's, you know, just a short word or just a short piece of advice. But I would say yourself, you've got to, you know, get up and look for that, help yourself, and show that conviction, and willing to make yourself uncomfortable, willing to make, you know, to break the ice when you're most uncomfortable, because you just never know who you'll talk to. Yeah, you'll never.
No, you're spot on.
Yeah, you'll never know who you'll talk to. They could be the next person who, you know, to take you to the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matthew, I've got 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up, or maybe 3. Would you say you were successful? Almost like a binary, like yes, no, and actually, I'd like to ask.
I think success is a state of mind.
Yeah. Okay.
And successful, yes. And the reason I said is because I think I'm proud of what I've done. I value the work I do, and I like to think that, you know, good work will all turn out good results, and in a way that gives me a sense of pride. And for me, that is success. Have I reached what I would deem the most successful, I don't know, being, or
who is that, and what is that?
I don't know.
You? Yeah.
For me, success.
Like, give me a name of someone who's successful to you. Who would that be?
Oh, a name of someone who's successful to me.
The only reason being is because you now put in yourself. You believe you're successful, but not yet there.
Not yet there.
I'm curious to know: is there someone you have in mind who's there?
Someone I have who's there. That's a really good question. Excuse me, I think that person will probably be me in 20 years' time.
Excellent. Great answer.
And that'll probably be me if I'm still here. And that's to say, I want to be in a position one day when I'm glad I'm in this incredible journey. Kind of pretty fortunate and lucky in how things have panned out for me. And I envision myself just going up and just teaching somewhere. And I think for me, that will be the ultimate measure of success. And then, and how am I able to share the best, and, you know, the best of what I know with the brightest of the future, if I could put it that way.
No.
And I guess that to me will be the ultimate success. So while I'm successful, or I think I'm successful now, there's still a lot more which I need to do, which I need to conquer. And that one person, I guess is hopefully will be me when I look back this day in 20 years' time.
That is an amazing answer. And just to finalise, is there any lessons you want to give our listeners who want to almost hopefully emulate your success to date, if they can? Like any resources or to look at?
Any resources, focus on your strengths. And I've learned, most of the stuff I've learned is by... I love reading autobiographies. I find them so fascinating. It's almost like you almost get into learn someone's adversaries and someone's successes, and, you know, how they've kind of gone through life. And these are autobiographies. It could be one written by Barack Obama, or one by a guy who managed to run, you know, an ultra marathon. Kind of bring that whole range. And I find human stories is the most inspiring than anything else, you know, just because I think that at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that we're all human beings and we have a lot to learn from other human beings. And if anything, if I had to give advice to anyone, is if you strip back everything else, just learn from your fellow human beings, and try build your own success or your own story by standing on the shoulders of giants. Because one day you will be that giant yourself.
Amazing. I think, Matthew, you've been amazing. You can follow Matthew at
Ncube says, and that's my surname, NCUBESAYS.
Hey guys, we really appreciate you listening, and if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comment section below. Also, all the info about the guests, the links and the resources we speak about will be in the description below. And last but not least, please do get in touch if you can teach us how you do what it is you do. Because after all, Blacticulate is all about empowering and upskilling the community. Thanks, guys. You're the best. See you soon.